So the next topic I would like to cover with you is stack walls, okay? This is something that I don't see a lot of people use often, and I understand why, but at the same time, if you have a standardized project, if you wish, or something that repeats itself over and over and over again, can be extremely useful. And for the purpose of this particular exercise, one of the first things I'll do is I'll just remove these kind of partial modify settings, all right? I'll just come here at the bottom, modify, select them and lock them. And I think that if I lock the last one, oh no, I actually need to do all of them one by one. All right, I'll just do it at the top as well. Oh, my scroll button decided to stop working, so I cannot pan around. That's just awesome. Anyways, I hit okay, boom, now it behaves normally. Now, what a stacked wall is, well, it's in the name, but what Revit allows you to do is to actually have two walls on top of each other. And you would see, remember at some point I told you that Revit cannot allow to not have at least one of something? Stack walls is just another example. So if I do WA, and this time I'll just do it in 3D space, and if I open my drop-down menu, I'm pretty sure that, there we go. At the bottom, I have stacked walls and it's just exterior, blah, blah, blah. And I'll hit it and I'll just draw it, okay? So what we're actually looking at is not just one wall, but think about it in a way as a family of two walls stacked on top of each other. This is it. So in this particular case, the default Revit one, they have this like stone wall and then they have this brick wall on top. So that makes perfect sense. If I select it and if I say BX, so I can create a box and I can cut through it, you see that I can see their composition and it makes perfect sense. Whatever the stud or the concrete block is a continuous thing, the insulation as well, and they're just changing the finish on the outside, okay? But I would walk you through the process of creating our own one. But in our case, instead of using it for the base, we can actually use it for the parapet. This is something that on the last project that I've worked on is something that we use all the time, because one of the beauties of these things is that instead of having to create one wall and then a second one, and then when you get to the parapet, a third one. So now you have to manage three walls, and if one moves, you know, maybe the others will follow, maybe they will not. Maybe you adjust only the middle one because this is what you're cutting in plan. And, you know, if you need to move it, well, you know, and you forget to go in section. Anyways, it's a hassle. So it's actually very useful to use stack walls in this particular case. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to take that wall that we already created, all right, and I will duplicate it because I'll create a new type. This is going to be my parapet. I'll create a new type starting with the one we already have. So I'll select it, edit type, the little window pops up, and I'll duplicate, okay? And instead of calling it exterior brick wall, I'll just call it exterior brick parapet. All right, fantastic. And I'll hit OK. And the only difference between, let's say, my parapet and my original wall would be, let's say, the size of the stud. Let's say here I just need 64 millimeters, something very simple. Oh, and the other thing I don't need is my resilient channels. Like I actually just don't need that at all. So I would delete it. And the other thing, it's a little bit of an overkill, but I'll put 19 millimeters and not gypsum board. I would put plywood. A lot of parapets are just mostly done in plywood, so that's fine. And I'll say okay. And for my other wall, I would just want to make sure that I'm back at my typical wall composition instead of 102, 150. So 6-inch metal studs at 400 on center. Voila. So ideally what I will do is I would take, that's a funny effect. Okay. I would take this brick wall and I would put it on top of this one as a stack wall. Okay. So let's try this. I would take this one, I would hold Control, another trick, and then drag it. So this would make a copy of it. So this is how you make copies. And I would select the stack wall and I would say edit type. And again, I would say duplicate because I want to start from scratch. All right. I would duplicate, I would call it 00, stack wall, and I'll put like a little descriptor, brick parapet, whatever. Usually these descriptors are nice in brackets. So if people are wondering, you know, does a certain wall exist? They can very easily find it this way. So put descriptors in brackets. Pro tip. I'll go to my structure and you would see that I have the two walls. Okay. So they're using their default ones, but here at the bottom, what I would like to do is I would like to go back to my own one, and you see how useful it is to call them 0, 0 now. So this would be my exterior brick wall, click. And then in the top, what I would like to have is my exterior brick parapet, all right? And I'll just zoom in here, and I will see that they're not aligned at all. And when we talk about offset, see, in this particular case, it's using the core center line. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in the core, in the finish face of the core. Remember how we did this gypsum board goes inside the boundary? That's precisely the reason. Makes my life a lot easier. I don't have to do any calculations of particular offsets and whatnot. I have one continuous line the entire time. Love it. So drop down, core face, exterior. Thank you so much. So now I have my brick in the front is perfectly aligned. And then here, because technically here is going to be the slab, and I'm just going to model it in a second. Except that what I want to make sure is that my parapet, it's actually a set height, but it's my wall at the bottom that it's a variable. So I would select my brick wall, hit that it's a variable, and the top, I'll just call it a 1 meter. Let's just put it this way. So now, regardless of how tall this is, so regardless of how tall my wall is, my parapet would always be 1 meter. So if I constrain my wall properly, that means that my parapet all around would be exactly the same, and I don't have to think about it. Again, here you can kind of fall into offsets, but I don't need, so anyways, let's just say 100 just so that we can, demonstrate it. But because I've done my job well, creating the layers, I can put everything at a 0 and I'm good to go. And I'll say, okay. And here's the product of my genius. You know what? I'm actually going to make this even more complex now. I'm going to take this parapet that we created and I'm going to duplicate and create a new one. And I'll just call this stone base. We're going to make that stack wall even more complicated. So this is going to become 200 all of a sudden, and it's not brick anymore. Let's just call it stone. And let's see what it is. Concrete casting. You know what? I'm okay with this. Concrete base. Boom. So I can go back to my stack wall, edit the type, actually insert another one. I'll bring it down here. It would be, let's say, 600 tall, and I'll make sure that this is my stone base. Woohoo. Okay. And one thing I just need to do in this type is make sure that my studs in this particular case are 152 as well. So look at this beautiful, beautiful wall that I have right now that's missing one layer. Sorry, this one is actually missing one layer so that I can get back there. So this would be insert. This would be gypsum wall board right there. We said it was 16 metal stud layer. Boom. And then this we said it was 22, right? So now we can actually match them. See, and if I do BX, so if I am able to cut through it, you would see that I have a continuous structure, which is precisely what I need. And I just have different things kind of sticking out of it. And again, my parapet, which is smaller because this is precisely what I want. So technically, what I can do is I can say, instead of using this just regular brick wall, I want to be using this stack wall all around. All right, sounds good. I'll just hover over one of them, hit tab so I can select all of them, open my menu, go the way down, and I'll choose the one that we just created. Boom, a beauty. So, and I'll make sure that they all go just to the second floor so that there's no top offset. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this floor and I'll pretend it's a roof just for a moment. And I'll say copy, come here to, I haven't done my shortcuts yet. Okay. Align to selected levels. I want it to be aligned to level 2. Great. And the only thing I would need to do is make sure that actually, you know what? 1000 was a great idea. Boom. So if I create a scope box around it now, there you go. I have this perfect kind of junction in here. And if I ever join this geometry, let's say this with this, and then this with this, you would see that my junction looks perfect as it will be in real life without me having to do any 2D. If I create a section, by the way, this would be true there as well. So if I create a section going this way, and if I look at it and I make sure that my detail level is in fine, my junction is pretty much done. So let's say if I'm working on my wall sections, I actually don't need to kind of model anything here. I can just kind of identify everything, there is. Very important things if you're working on a big project, even though you're using a stack wall, when you tag a wall, you see how it only tags the component of the stack wall. So don't worry about it. You're not tagging a stack wall, so your types, Revit would keep on recognizing them. So you're good to go. Topic for another day. Okay, so this is the functionality of a stack wall in a nutshell. Let's move on.